It's undeniable, right? The number of people who are losing their jobs for what they're posting online. There seems to be a lot of people that have been celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. They've written some really just awful, ugly things online, and their employers are taking action swiftly. Now, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there for what employers can and cannot do. And there's a lot of folks on social media saying so much for the First Amendment, right? This is just cancel culture. JP, you practice employment law every day. You're the head of the employment practice at the Dhillon Law Group. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, the most of the country does not have laws that protect a private employee in a private employer from being fired for their views, even, or their beliefs, to the extent they don't touch upon religion. So if you say something abhorrent in Florida at work, you can be marched out the door that day. If you say something abhorrent in a very liberal state like California that really protects employees and their rights, you can also be disciplined up and until like termination. So you could be put on leave, you could be fired. And why is that important now? Well, it's important because you have these people in positions of public trust who are doctors, nurses, lawyers, teachers, people who care for others saying totally abhorrent things. And that affects the businesses that they effectively represent, and it affects the people under their care. So California, even as employee friendly as it is, has statutes that say, yeah, okay, you can't discipline somebody or terminate them for their conduct outside the workplace, but you certainly can if it impacts the workplace. So, for example, if you're a manager and you go out and start using racist epithets on Twitter, you can be fired for that. There's no question, right? If you start celebrating an assassination and you're a hospital worker in California, even as employee friendly as it is, you can be fired for that. So I'm not aware of any state in the US that prevents an employer from firing somebody for totally abhorrent conduct or thoughts or viewpoints that conflict with that workplace, with their values, with their obligations to patients or students, etc.
Yeah, I think what people need to realize is what they say online is a reflection on their employers, especially when you tag your employer in your bio online. The idea that you can just get away, you have this First Amendment get out of jail free card, keep your job under any circumstances, it's just baffling. These are employers. Their goal is to make money. And if you do things that are going to hurt the business's bottom line, yeah, you absolutely.
Absolutely. And let's talk briefly about the First Amendment, because there's a huge misconception. Everybody says, well, I've got freedom of speech. What happened to the First Amendment? You have freedom of speech from government coming in and stopping you from talking or retaliating against you or jailing you because of what you said. You don't have a First Amendment protection in a private workspace. It's private. To be clear, people need to understand the First Amendment applies to the government coming in and doing something to you, right? The cops arresting you because you said something they didn't like, okay? But the First Amendment does not apply in a private workplace. Government employees have First Amendment protections because they work for the government. That's different. It's more complicated. There are several layers, but there are still exceptions, right? Government employees cannot necessarily go say whatever they want, either inside or outside of the workplace. There are still exceptions. But I think it's really important to realize that when we say freedom of speech, we're talking about the First Amendment. And when we're talking about the First Amendment, we're talking about government action, what private consequences could occur if you say something or believe something abhorrent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that idea of free speech and First Amendment are conflated, and what you get like 140 characters on X, to tweet, right? And so I think that level of just minutia of detail is really important, right? There's this broader concept of free speech. That broader concept it's different. It's distinguishable from what the Constitution itself actually protects, right? And there could be employers who have within their employee handbooks, certain freedom of speech protections that they extend to their employees, but that's a different issue. That's a contractual issue you have with your employer, that's not a constitutional First Amendment issue.